Hey guys, tonight is really a night to settle in because we're talking about one of the most sleep-inducing rampages in Greek mythology, the 12 gruesome, confusing, and occasionally absurd labors of Hercules. Imagine you're a demigod with muscles carved by centuries of pottery, painting a club the size of a small tree and the emotional range of a slightly drunk bear. Now imagine you lose everything in a fit of divine madness, and someone upstairs decides that the only way you can redeem yourself is through 12 bizarre errands that would make even a bored Olympian sigh. The torches are lit. You're standing barefoot on a dusty palace floor in Thebes, your hands still trembling. Blood on your tunic, screams fading from memory. You don't fully understand what happened, only that Hera, wife of Zeus and queen of holding grudges, clouded your mind and made you slaughter your wife and children. You didn't want to. You would have done anything to stop it. But the gods, well, they love a little theatrical penance. So here you are, staring into the eyes of the oracle at Delphi. She smells like burnt olives and speaks like she's halfway to sleep herself. To cleanse your soul, she says, serve Eurystheus, king of Tyrants. Do what he commands. 12 deeds. Then you may find peace. You resist the urge to ask if sweeping up temple leaves would count. Before we begin, a little favor: tap subscribe and give us a thumbs up to help our bedtime story family grow. Now snuggle in and let tonight's story guide you softly into a night full of calm and beautiful dreams. You walk the dusty road toward Tyrann's sandals, kicking up tired clouds. You're Hercules, or Heracles if you want to make it Greek, but right now, you're just a haunted man on the world's worst to-do list. You don't even know what the first labor is yet. You pass goat herders, tired women at wells, men trading amphorae of oil, and not one of them knows they're watching a future constellation, dragging his regrets through gravel. Eurystheus is not impressive. He's nervous pale with a face that seems permanently wrinkled by worry. He hides behind his palace guards to deliver your tasks, which seems fair since he knows you could snap his neck like a celery stalk. His first challenge: kill the Nemean lion. Easy, right? Just a big cat. Except this lion's hide is invulnerable. Swords bounce off it like peas on bronze. Arrows snap midair. Even its roar feels like it rearranges your organs. Historians still argue whether the Nemean lion was meant to represent a local predator, a metaphor for war, or just some leftover Minoan theater costume someone described badly in song. Either way, you've got to face it. You enter Nemea's forest. The trees are dark, as if even sunlight doesn't want to be part of this. You hear it before you see it. Deep growling, heavy breaths, the sound of meat being chewed in a way that makes you reconsider your last snack. There's no hero's entrance, no choir, just you and the beast. You fight. It's savage, a blur of claws and club swings. When your weapons fail, you do the only thing left: you drop them, and you wrap your arms around the beast's neck. That's right. You strangle it. Your muscles burn. Blood trickles into your eye. The lion thrashes, gouging bark off trees. But finally it goes still. Your heart pounds like war drums. And then silence. The fringe fact here: ancient Greek athletes would oil themselves before combat, but Hercules was often depicted unoiled, probably because he'd get too slippery to paint. Also, who needs olive oil when your opponent has knives for fingers? You drag the body back. But wait. How do you prove you killed it? The skin is invulnerable, remember? Swords can't cut it. After a few hours of awkward tugging and trying not to swear in front of children, you realize maybe the lion's own claws can pierce it. And just like that, you invent self-taxidermy. You drape the hide over your shoulders. The head becomes a hood. You walk back to Tyrants like a gruesome parade float. Eurystheus is so terrified, he hides in a giant wine jar and declares that all future labors must be delivered to his guards, not directly to him. You sleep that night on cold stone lion hide, wrapped around you, the stars blinking overhead. It's only the first task. 11 more to go. And the weight in your chest isn't lighter yet. Rest your head, slow your thoughts, and together we'll step into a soothing place where dreams begin to bloom. You wake up before dawn, stiff from the stone and stiff from everything else, regret, lion wrestling, emotional damage. The sun hasn't yet peeled itself over the horizon, but the guards are already pounding on the door. Another labor, another bad idea, waiting to happen. This time, Eurystheus doesn't even bother showing his face. A trembling messenger, probably chosen for his ability to run away quickly, reads from a scroll. Travel to the swamps of Lerna. Slay the Hydra. You don't even ask what a Hydra is. You know better now. Turns out it's a serpentine water monster with multiple heads and a passion for neck-based multiplication. Cut one off, two more grow back, like the worst haircut in mythology. Lerna is not scenic. It's swampy, reeking of brine death and some kind of moss that gives you the sneezes. The reeds hiss as you move. Dragonflies big enough to carry off children buzz overhead. And there, near a stagnant pond, coiled like a deity's plumbing problem, is the Hydra. 9 heads to start with, they say. Though ancient sources disagree, some claim 50, others 100. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic of a natural disaster, a particularly vicious eel colony, or just a weird story someone invented after slipping into a bog. You step forward. The Hydra notices. It rears, hissing mouths, snapping. You dodge, slash one head down. You feel victorious for half a second before 2 new heads sprout from the stump with a squelch that makes your stomach fold in on itself. This is going to be a long morning. The fight becomes a blur. You slash, step spin, and every time 2 more. It's like the worst kind of math problem if Hercules removes 3 heads every 10 seconds, but 6 grow back in the same time. How long before he regrets life choices? The turning point comes in the form of a sleepy-eyed companion, your nephew Iolaus. He doesn't fight much, but today he brings a torch. After watching you sweat and curse for 10 minutes, he figures something out. What if you burn the neck stumps, he asks. And suddenly you have a plan. Chop, cauterize. Chop, cauterize. The smell is awful, like roasted eel and despair. But it works. The stumps seal. The heads stop growing. Slowly, the monster begins to falter. Then the Hydra's secret weapon comes, a giant crab. No, really. Out of nowhere, this crustacean charges in and clamps onto your foot with the speed and grace of a warrior who's also a side dish. Hera, ever the meddler, sent it to help. You crush it with your heel, muttering apologies to seafood lovers everywhere. Eventually, the final head falls. You keep it, of course, because when you fight a death noodle, you want a souvenir. You dip your arrows into its blood, which is so poisonous it can kill just by touching skin. This will come in handy later when you want to ruin someone's day from across a field. Fun fact, some ancient sources claim Hydra blood was too poisonous, so potent that even the arrows made from it would eventually turn on Hercules himself. Cheery stuff. You return triumphant, but Eurystheus, now even more paranoid, refuses to count this labor. You had help, he says. Your nephew assisted. It's not fair, but when your judge hides in a jar, logic takes a back seat. You don't argue. You've got 10 more. You're getting good at not complaining. That night the stars feel a little closer. You lie on your back in the tall grass, Hydra blood still staining your tunic, your club resting at your side. You wonder how many heads your guild has, how many you'll need to burn before it stops growing back. And in the silence, you almost feel clean. The next morning, you're already walking by the time the frogs of Lerna stop croaking. The marsh air still clings to your hair, and a faint whiff of cooked snake lingers in your nostrils. You think about asking for a bath. But who are you kidding? You're Hercules. You smell like old monsters and regret. That's kind of your thing now. You make your way to Tyrion's, where the guards meet you outside the palace walls. No eye contact. They just hand you another scroll and back away like you've got a hydra head for a face. This time, capture the Ceryneian hind. Ah, the hind. A deer. Seems simple enough, right? Except it's not just any deer, it's golden. Literally. Its hooves shine like polished amber, and its antlers glow faintly under the moonlight. It's sacred to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Touch it, and you risk divine wrath with a side of arrows to the spleen. So naturally, Eurystheus wants you to bring it back alive, not kill. Capture. Because chasing a divine deer through forests and mountains sounds like the kind of thing that builds character. You head north through Arcadia, past shepherds who blink at you with that, "Oh no, what now" expression. The landscape shifts into dense woods and mountain passes. You start tracking the hind's hoofprints, which look more like miniature suns pressed into the soil. And so begins one of the most ridiculous chases in Greek mythology. You pursue the deer for a year. A full year. Through forests, rivers, and snow. Sometimes it pauses to eat. Sometimes it looks at you with eyes full of mockery. You're not even sure it's real half the time. Fun historical fact. The Greeks believed that certain animals, especially deer, were messengers or companions of the gods. Capturing one wasn't just physically difficult, it risked spiritual punishment. Basically, imagine trying to sneak a Vatican artifact out of Rome barefoot with a net. After nearly 12 months, you finally corner it near the river Ladon. The air is crisp. You move carefully. You whisper a prayer well more like an apology to Artemis and set a trap near the riverbank. The deer steps into the snare. Its muscles ripple. Its antlers shimmer like gold dipped in starlight. For a moment, you expect Artemis to descend from the clouds and turn you into a hedgehog, but instead, nothing. As you lift the hind gently in your arms, you feel its heart racing like thunder in your hands. You talk to it softly, promising to return it. Just a quick detour, you murmur like someone borrowing a god's favorite pet. And of course you run into Artemis. She appears just as you're passing through a misty grove, barefoot eyes like the moonbow drawn so smoothly, you wonder if it ever rests. "Why are you stealing what is mine?" she asks in a voice like wind before a storm. You lower the deer, raise your hands. "I had to," you say, "but I swear I'll bring it back unharmed." She studies you for a long moment, then she lowers the bow. "Very well," she says, "but only because you asked nicely." Historians still argue whether this part of the myth represents a seasonal cycle like autumn's retreat or the sacredness of nature, or whether it was just a filler task between killing monsters. Either way, diplomacy isn't usually your strong suit. But today, you nailed it. You return the deer to Eurystheus, holding it by a rope of woven vines. He steps forward, hands already outstretched, and you let the deer go. It bolts back toward the hills like a flash of divine laughter. Eurystheus screams. You shrug. That counts, you say. That night, you camp beneath a sycamore tree, alone with your thoughts. The wind smells like pine needles. You watch the branches sway, trying to imagine what it must be like to be a creature that never questions its place in the world. The deer ran because it was meant to. You chase because you must. Maybe that's all the gods want. The fourth labor starts with a storm. Thunder rolling in from the west, the kind that makes shepherds call their flocks home early, and fishermen pretend their boats have leaks. You're already halfway to Mount Erymanthos before anyone bothers to hand you the official scroll. You don't need it. Word spread there's a boar up there, a big one. Not just any boar, of course. The Erymanthian boar, as wide as a cart and twice as angry, with tusks like polished swords and a scream that makes ravens fall out of trees. The mission: capture it alive. You know, again with the alive part. You trudge uphill boots, slipping in the mud, your lion skin cloak soaked and smelling faintly of wet dog. The slopes of the mountain rise into snow-flecked ridges, and the trees grow closer together until you're practically forcing your way through thickets of pine and bramble. Somewhere in this mess, a monster with hooves is waiting to turn you into a kebab. And then, a break. You spot a small cottage, the sort that might belong to a kindly forest witch, or as it turns out, an old friend. Pholus the centaur. Half man, half horse, full-time warrior. He invites you in, offers roasted chestnuts and barley cakes, and opens a jar of sacred wine. That's where things go wrong. See, the wine is communal, reserved for all centaurs. When you pop the cork, its scent wafts down the slopes like a divine dinner bell. Before you know it, angry centaurs are galloping toward the hut, wielding sticks, stones, and what looks suspiciously like a chair leg. The fight that follows is pure chaos. You grab flaming logs, hurl pottery, and eventually resort to just kicking wildly. Somewhere in the fray, poor Pholus gets fatally wounded not by an enemy, but accidentally by one of your poisoned arrows. Yes, the Hydra venom ones. Bit of an overkill for a scuffle, but here we are. There's a strange quiet afterward. The wine jar spills. Snowflakes begin to fall. Quirky fact, some versions of the myth say the wine was so strong that even the smell could intoxicate someone. A vintage that doubles as a riot starter. The guilt doesn't leave, but you press on. The boar is still out there. Up into the snow you go. Ice crunches underfoot. The cold gnaws at your fingers. And then you hear it, a deep snorting breath, a heavy thump of hooves, and a shriek that splits the trees. It charges. You leap aside. The ground explodes in a spray of snow and frozen dirt. The boar is monstrous, all muscle and fury, eyes wild as a thundercloud. It charges again, and you dance between trees, baiting it higher and higher into the snowy pass. That's the trick. Boars aren't built for mountains, especially not snowy ones. You lure it into deeper snow, where its powerful legs sink too fast to recover. It slows, stumbles, snorts in confusion. And then it's yours. You tackle it, tie its legs, sling it over your shoulders like it's a sack of overgrown carrots, and begin the long, slow descent back to civilization. Historians still argue whether the Erymanthian boar was a symbol of untamed nature chaos, or just a stand-in for a rampaging warlord who liked headbutting sheep. Whatever it was, you carry it home like a bizarre holiday gift. Eurystheus takes one look at you covered in bruises and boar drool, and does what he always does. He screams and dives into his jar. He orders you to store the beast somewhere far away, preferably behind several locked doors. That night you sit beside a small fire, the snow melting into steam around your boots. You remember Pholus, his laugh, his worry lines, the way he handed you warm bread without asking questions. And you wonder again how many labors must pass before the weight begins to lift. You don't even make it back to Tiryns before the next labor is shoved into your hands, quite literally. A soldier meets you on the road with a scroll and the kind of expression that says, "Please don't make eye contact." You break the seal with a thumb still bruised from wrangling a boar and read the task aloud. Hoping maybe it'll make more sense when spoken, it doesn't. Clean the Augean stables in a single day. You blink. That's it. No fire breathing, no magical antlers. You can almost hear the gods laughing. Because here's the catch, Augeas, king of Elis, owns the largest herd of immortal cattle in Greece, thousands of beasts. Their stables haven't been cleaned in, depending on the version, 30 years, or maybe never. The place is less rustic barnyard and more epicenter of poop-based catastrophe. Historians still argue whether this task was symbolic of purifying corruption or just a literal act of divine hazing. Either way, it's going to be disgusting. You arrive at Elis and meet Augeas, who has the confidence of a man who's never held a shovel in his life. He smirks. "You clean my stables in one day, I'll give you 1/10 of my cattle." 1/10. That's a lot of moo for one man. You shake on it. Big mistake. The smell hits before you see the place, waves of it, like 1,000 dung pies sunbathing for eternity. You gag, you squint, you wonder briefly if you should just throw yourself into a nearby river and let nature take its course. Then an idea forms. You glance at the two rivers nearby, the Alpheus and the Peneus, cold, fast-moving, full of potential. You don't need to shovel this mess. You just need to reroute the plumbing. It takes hours of backbreaking work, lifting stones, digging trenches, and guiding the rivers like twin serpents of salvation. But eventually, the water flows. It gushes into the stables like a divine flood, blasting centuries of filth into the fields beyond. You, of course, are soaked, covered in silt and whatever ancient horrors were buried under cow droppings. But the stables sparkling. Sort of. Sparkling enough. Algaeus returns. He looks stunned. And then, predictably, he tries to back out of the deal. "You cheated," he says. "That doesn't count." And just like that, the labor is denied by Eurystheus too, because you used a river, not a broom. Quirky tidbit. In some fringe versions of the myth, Hercules actually sues Algaeus for breaking his word. In court. A literal courtroom drama, jury and all. You can practically hear the Law and Order harp music. You don't sue today? You're too tired, too muddy, too done. Instead, you walk away still covered in muck, back to Tiryns, where a soldier sighs and hands you another scroll. You wonder what kind of redemption arc involves this much livestock. You camp beside the Peneus that night. The river murmurs beside you. The stars blink gently above. You think about the water, how it rushed through waste, carried it away, made something foul almost clean again. You hope your labors are doing the same to you. Morning breaks with the sound of wings, not doves or sparrows. No, these wings sound like swords slicing air. You barely get your boots on before another scroll is flung at your feet, tied with a ribbon that's far too cheerful for what's inside. You open it and squint against the early light, drive away the Stymphalian birds. You groan. Stymphalus is a swampy backwater in Arcadia, and the birds aren't your typical feathery friends. These ones are armored, metallic, aggressive. Their feathers are sharp enough to pierce armor, and they launch them like darts. They eat human flesh. Their droppings, corrosive. Yep, even the bird poop in this story is weaponized. You trek there under a sky that keeps threatening rain but never delivers. The woods grow thicker. The air tastes metallic. You finally arrive at the marshes, dark water-tangled reeds, and a chorus of bird shrieks loud enough to rattle your bones. Then you see them, high in the trees and circling above the water, the Stymphalian birds. Bronze-beaked, iron-clawed, and glaring like creatures who have never heard of peaceful coexistence. They flutter in swarms, and their wing beats rattle branches and ripple the water below. You try tossing rocks. Nope. Yelling. Nope. Throwing sticks. One lands in the water with a sad splash and immediately dissolves in some kind of acidic sludge. That's when Athena shows up. You know the goddess of wisdom, and I always know better. She hands you a pair of bronze castanets, basically giant noisemakers, and says, "Try these." You blink. You want me to jazz hands the birds to death? But it works. You climb onto a hilltop and rattle the castanets with everything you've got. The sound is piercing divine and makes you wish you still had eardrums. The birds go nuts, flying out of the trees, shrieking, spiraling into the open sky like a bronze tornado. And that's when you let the arrows fly. You draw your bow, the one with those nice poisoned hydra-tipped arrows, and start plucking the flock from the air. 1, 2, 3. Some burst into feathers. Others plummet into the swamp, vanishing into the murky ooze. Historians still argue whether these birds were symbolic of a foreign threat. Some say they came from the Black Sea, or just the result of one too many myth-making poets with insomnia and an irrational fear of geese. You drive the rest off. They scatter over the mountains, screeching like someone stepped on a pile of tin armor. You don't kill them all, but you don't have to. Eurystheus accepts the labor. Apparently, annoying birds into leaving counts. Quirky detail. Some ancient playwrights described the birds as sacred pets of Ares, the god of war, which explains the attitude and maybe also the murder droppings. You return from the swamps, tired and slightly deaf, feathers clinging to your lion cloak arrow, quiver half empty. But there's something satisfying about this one. No monsters to gut, no divine animals to apologize to, just you. Some aggressive percussion and a lot of squawking. You make camp near the base of a cliff, the wind rushing through pine needles like the hush of a crowd finally settling down. You think about those birds slicing through the air, angry and chaotic, always circling. You wonder how many of your own thoughts are like that, agitated, dangerous, sharp-edged. You try to still them, one deep breath at a time. When the next scroll comes, you don't even bother breaking the seal gently. You just tear it open with one finger and sigh before you read. You're expecting something irrational, probably with tusks or scales. Instead, you get a bull, a big one. The Cretan bull, the scroll says, capture it alive. Of course, because there's nothing you love more than trying to wrangle an unstoppable fire-breathing beast that once casually ruined a coastline. You know the story. King Minos of Crete once promised Poseidon he'd sacrifice the most beautiful bull that rose from the sea. But when the sea god actually sent him one, a glistening, perfect creature of divine muscle and menace, Minos decided, I'll keep it. That never goes over well with Olympians. As punishment, Poseidon made the bull feral and insane. Also, according to some delightfully PG-13 myths, he made Minos' wife fall in love with it. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic of failed diplomacy or just the ancient Greeks being themselves. You take a boat to Crete, trying not to think about that bit. Crete is beautiful, all olive trees and blue sea, with breezes that almost make you forget the errand you're on. But then you hear it, the bellow. Deep echoing through the hills like an earthquake in the throat of a god. The villagers point you inland, wide-eyed, and some even offer you wine. You take it. It doesn't help. You find the bull grazing in a field of ruined stone. It's massive, more mountain than animal. Its hooves scorch the grass. Its eyes gleam with divine madness. When it snorts, small flames lick from its nostrils. Your first attempt is simple: charge it. Bad idea. You fly backward, land in a thorn bush, and spend the next 10 minutes pulling out prickles while muttering things unfit for temple walls. You try baiting it with food. You try approaching slowly with soothing whispers. You even try singing a lullaby you barely remember. Nothing works. Finally, you remember the trick isn't in overpowering the beast, it's outlasting it. So you start weaving through the rocks, goading it, dodging, leaping, letting it charge and miss until the rage begins to slow. Sweat pours down your back. Your muscles ache. But eventually, the bull falters. Tired. Breathing heavy. That's when you leap. You grip the horn's twist just so and guide it into a heap of crumbled masonry. You bind its legs with chains, ones you brought because you're starting to anticipate how these things go, and whisper, "Sorry about all this," into its steaming ear. Quirky side note. Some fringe versions of the myth say the bull wasn't just captured, it became the same bull that later fathered the Minotaur, which makes this possibly the worst family tree in Greek history. You haul the beast back to the shore. It takes 3 rafts and several extremely nervous oarsmen. When you land at Tyrants, Eurystheus takes one look at the snorting, fire-sneezing mountain of muscle and dives into his storage jar so fast you can hear the lid clunk. He accepts the labor, but demands you release the bull somewhere far away. You let it loose near Marathon. It runs off into legend. That night, you sleep under a fig tree, ears still ringing from the bull's cries. The stars above feel heavy, like they're pressing down on your chest. You think about promises, the ones gods make, the ones kings break, and the ones you wish you could take back. And you wonder what you'd do with peace, if you ever got it. You don't even get time to rinse the bull slime out of your tunic. Before the sun can rise again, the next task arrives, slapped against your chest by a guard who looks like he drew the short straw. You groan before you even read it. Retrieve the man-eating mares of Diomedes. Lovely. Horses this time, but not the kind that prance around meadows or nuzzle your hand for treats. These ones eat people. Raw. With enthusiasm, Diomedes is a Thracian king with a temper like a bonfire and a hobby of feeding strangers to his beloved mares. He's also conveniently a son of Ares, because why wouldn't the god of war be a terrible father to a warlord with carnivorous horses? You make your way north to Thrace, through hills that grow colder and wilder with each step. Villages get smaller. People stop making eye contact. Everyone knows what lives up there, and they don't want to talk about it. Eventually, you reach Diomedes' stables. They are less stables, more fortresses. Tall fences, guard towers, and from within the shrill screeching of horses whose appetites have clearly never involved apples or hay. You sneak in under cover of night. The smell hits first hot breath blood and something sour that clings to your throat. The horses pace like caged wolves' eyes, glowing red in the torchlight. Their mouths are stained, their teeth disturbingly human-shaped. You gag a little, then you steel yourself. You're Hercules. You've wrestled lions. You've fought hydras. You've even used rivers as giant bidets. You can handle horses. Sort of. You try to soothe them. Nope. You try shouting. Nope. One nearly takes your arm off, and that's when Diomedes himself shows up sword-drawn shouting profanities and generally making the situation worse. So you do what any overworked, emotionally fried demigod would do. You fight him. It's brutal, messy, and fast. And in the end, you throw him quite literally into the horse's enclosure. Yes, you feed Diomedes to his own mares. They love it. It's grotesque, sure, but also efficient. After eating their master, the horses seem calmer, like something inside them resets. They snort, paw the ground. One even lets you pat its flank, which you do with extreme caution. Historians still argue whether the mares were ever truly man-eating or simply symbols of war-fueled chaos, wild, unrestrained, and capable of destroying the very men who command them. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman versions gave these horses names: Podargos Swift Lampon, Shining Xanthos Blonde, and Danos Terrible. Sounds more like a boy band than a mythological nightmare, but there you go. You bind the four of them with thick chains, whispering apologies as you go. They don't fight you now. They follow, obedient, empty-eyed, like something sacred or cursed has left them. The journey back is quiet. No screaming, no snapping jaws, just hooves thudding softly on the road and the occasional snort that makes nearby villagers scream and bolt behind doors. Eurystheus accepts this one quickly. He wants nothing to do with these creatures. He orders them released. So you lead them into the hills somewhere high and quiet. They vanish into the mist, and you pray they never remember what they once were. That night, you lie near a river listening to the soft rush of water over stones. You think about what it means to tame a monster if calming the rage is the same as healing it. And you wonder how many times someone will need to chain you before you stop being dangerous. The stars are still. The mares are gone. But their silence lingers. You're starting to sense a pattern. The scrolls don't even bother waiting for you to reach Tiryns anymore. They show up like bad weather, uninvited and impossible to ignore. This time it's a particularly fancy one, sealed with red wax and written in an annoyingly curly script. You squint at it. Retrieve the belt of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons. Oh, great. Because marching into a kingdom of legendary warrior women, known for outsmarting, outrunning, and outsorting the best soldiers Greece has to offer, is exactly what you want to do today. The belt, more properly a girdle, though that makes it sound like something sold in temple gift shops, is a symbol of power given to Hippolyta by Ares himself. It's said to grant strength and authority among her people. So naturally, Eurystheus wants it. Not for himself, of course, but as a gift for his daughter. Because nothing says love you, sweetie, like casually demanding a God-blessed war relic. You sail north to the Masira, passing long coastlines and open sea. The ship's crew pretends not to watch you constantly. Word of your labors has spread. You've become something between a hero and a walking omen. The Amazons aren't what you expect. They're organized, strategic, graceful. Their armor shines, their arrows fly with frightening precision. And Hippolyta herself. Tall, calm, regal, like a statue come to life. When you meet her, she's not hostile, just curious. You explain your task. She listens. And to your surprise, she agrees. Just like that. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth originally ended peacefully. Some ancient texts say Hippolyta admired your strength and offered the belt willingly. But peace, as we know, never lasts long in Greek mythology. That's when Hera intervenes. Again. Disguised as one of the Amazons, she whispers among them. Hercules is here to kidnap your queen. Panic spreads, trust shatters, arrows are knocked, swords drawn, and before you can blink, you're under attack. The scene turns chaotic. Screams, smoke, clashing metal. You don't want to fight them. You try to explain. But now you're just the villain in a story someone else rewrote. You're forced to defend yourself. You don't hold back. Eventually, amid the fray, Hippolyta appears again wounded, the belt still across her waist. She reaches for you not in anger, but regret, and then falls. Whether she dies or not depends on which poet you believe. Some say she lived and vanished into exile. Others say she fell by your hand. You don't remember, not clearly, just the storm of it, the noise, the silence afterward. You take the belt. You don't feel triumphant. Quirky fact. Some Greek pottery depicts this scene not as a battle but as a dance. Hercules and Hippolyta, locked in graceful movement, neither enemy nor lover, just two fated figures, caught in something bigger than either of them. You return by sea. The wind is heavy. The crew doesn't speak. You sit alone with the belt in your lap, its golden studs gleaming like small judging eyes. Eurystheus is delighted. His daughter barely glances at it. That night you stay in the city, but you don't sleep. You sit on the palace steps staring at your hands. They're clean, but somehow they still feel soaked in something you can't wash away. You wonder if a belt can really be worth more than peace, or trust, or a conversation that wasn't interrupted by war. The stars above blink on one by one, indifferent. You wake to rain? Not the gentle, poetic kind. This is sideways rain, angry, relentless, and apparently timed perfectly with your next labor. Another scroll, another problem. You peel it open with wet fingers. Steal the cattle of Geryon. You sigh so deeply, your ribs creak. Geryon is no ordinary cattle rancher. He's a triple-bodied giant who lives on the distant island of Erythea, somewhere near the edge of the known world. His cows, reddish divine, prized for reasons no one quite explains. They're guarded by a two-headed dog named Orthrus and a herdsman named Eurytion, who probably never gets invited to casual dinners. And you have to go all the way there, fight all of them, and bring the cows back. That's it. That's the task. Go to the end of the earth, pick a fight with a three-bodied giant, and herd immortal cattle across mountains and seas. You start walking west, then you keep walking. Then you keep walking some more. Days turn into weeks. The sun blisters your shoulders. Your feet feel like they've been chewing gravel. At one point you get so fed up with the heat that you literally shoot an arrow at the sun. That's when Helios, the sun god himself, shows up. Instead of incinerating you, he laughs. Says he likes your nerve, offers you his golden cup. Yes, the sun god has a giant golden boat cup that sails over the ocean every night. You step into it, blinking at the craftsmanship, and drift across the sea like a celestial gondolier. Quirky side fact. Some versions say this cup was an enormous bowl that floated, while others describe it more like a chariot. Historians still argue whether it was metaphorical or just ancient poetic flair with bad geography. Eventually, you reach Erythea. The island smells like salt and sulfur. The cows graze in meadows that shimmer faintly, their coats the color of dying embers. You're barely ashore when Orthrus charges, a snarling two-headed mass of teeth and fury. You don't wait. One blow from your club, and both heads fall silent. Next comes Eurytion. Poor guy doesn't last long. He runs at you spear raised, screaming something heroic, and is promptly launched into the sea like a badly tossed javelin. Then Geryon arrives. 3 torsos, 6 arms, a single sneer stretched across triple jaws. He carries weapons in every hand, swords, spears, a spiked club, even what might be a rock with nails in it. The fight is epic. You dodge one arm, block another. You swing dive roll through dust and sparks. His third head bites at you, while the first tries to shout insults in what sounds like 3 dialects at once. You finally land a blow straight through the middle body. The giant lets out a horrible sound, half scream, half thunderclap, and crashes to the ground, shaking the earth. You stand over him, breathing like a broken bellows, as the cattle moo gently behind you. The hard part isn't the killing, it's the driving. You've never herded cattle before, especially not magical ones with glowing hides and a tendency to wander toward cliffs. You guide them northeast, across rivers, through villages that gape at your bizarre parade. At one point, a rogue bandit tries to steal a calf. You introduce his face to a tree. Eventually, after what feels like a lifetime of moose and mud, you return to Tiryns. Eurystheus is pleased, if only because you now smell like cow breath and despair. He sacrifices some of the herd to Hera. The rest vanish into legend, or possibly a suspiciously luxurious banquet for the palace elite. You sleep that night beside a low-burning fire, your bed a blanket of straw. One cow wanders over and gently licks your hair. You sigh. You're not sure if that's affection or confusion. You think about Geryon, how someone can have 3 bodies and still be no match for one person with enough rage and exhaustion. You wonder how many versions of you exist, now hero, murderer, shepherd, myth. You close your eyes. You're dreaming of silence, finally just silence, when the next scroll thumps onto your chest like a disapproving god. You don't open your eyes right away. You already know it's bad. But eventually, curiosity gets the better of you. Retrieve the golden apples of the Hesperides. Oh, of course, magical apples, from a secret garden, guarded by nymphs and a 100-headed dragon. You sit up slowly and mutter, do they at least come with a snack pack? These aren't ordinary apples. They shimmer like frozen sunlight, gifted to Hera as a wedding present and hidden away at the farthest reaches of the earth. No map, no directions, just rumors, cryptic songs, and a general consensus that you probably won't survive this one. You start walking anyway. First, you visit Nereus, the old man of the sea. He knows things. He also shapeshifts when annoyed, which is often. You catch him mid-slumber, grab him by the beard, and hang on through several transformations. Eel bear wave windstorm, and finally, an extremely angry old man in a soggy robe. West he spits, farther than west, beyond where the map curls at the edge. You thank him and head toward the Atlantic, chasing legends. The terrain grows strange. The stars look wrong. Time begins to blur. You ask directions from Shepherd's river spirits, even a turtle who seems unusually smug. Then, at the base of a craggy hill, you find him Atlas. Yes, that Atlas. The titan doomed to hold up the sky on his back, like a divine punishment for forgetting to tip at Olympus. He's massive, stooped skin, like weathered marble. You approach cautiously. I need the apples, you say? He groans. Of course you do. Everyone wants the apples. No one wants to hold the sky. You blink. You want me to? He nods. Just for a minute. So you agree. You step beneath the burden. The sky presses down. It's heavy in a way that isn't physical. It squeezes your breath, slows your thoughts. You imagine every star above as a stone, every cloud a chain. Your knees tremble. Your heartbeat feels like thunder trapped in a well. Atlas straightens, stretches, and wanders off toward the garden like he's picking up groceries. You wait, and wait, and wait. He returns holding 3 apples that gleam like they've been dipped in dreams. He smiles. I'll take them to Eurystheus myself. You smile back. Nice try. And then, very politely, you trick him. Actually, you say, feigning a wince. Could you hold the sky for just a second while I pad my cloak for comfort? He nods. You hand it off and walk away with the apples. Quirky fact. Some versions of the story say it wasn't Atlas, but Hercules who entered the garden himself, lulled the dragon Ladon to sleep, and stole the fruit. But the more popular version includes the switcheroo. Because let's face it, even demigods enjoy a good con. You return to Tiryns, the apples glowing in your arms like captive suns. Eurystheus stares breath-caught, and then mumbles something about divine property. He sends the apples back to Athena, who returns them to the garden. Because no one ever actually gets to keep anything nice in these myths. You watch them disappear, wondering what all that was for. You sleep that night under an olive tree. The apples are gone, but the weight of the sky still lingers in your shoulders. You think about Atlas, how he stands there holding everything no one else wants. And for a moment, you wonder whether your labors are any different. The scroll arrives not by courier this time, but in the jaws of a wolf. It trots up silently, drops it at your feet, and vanishes into the trees before you can blink. You stare at the parchment like it might bite. You already know it's the last one. You open it slowly, half hoping it'll say spa day. It doesn't. Bring back Cerberus from the underworld. Alive. Of course, because after everything birds, bulls, magical apples, man-eating mares, you're now being sent to hell. Literally. And not just to visit. You're meant to borrow the giant 3-headed guardian dog from the very gates of the underworld. You pack lightly. To reach the land of the dead, you travel south beyond Sparta into the deep caves of Tanarum, a place where the earth seems thin and even the air feels borrowed. Locals avoid it. Birds won't fly over it. You descend alone. It gets cold quickly. Not freezing, but bone-deep ancient cold. You follow the tunnel downward until the light disappears behind you, and all that remains is the flicker of your torch and the echo of your own heartbeat. Or maybe someone else's. It's hard to tell down here. Eventually, you reach the river Styx, black and oily, barely rippling. Charon waits the ferryman. He doesn't speak, just extends a hand. You drop 2 coins into his palm. Not for payment, you're not dead, but as a courtesy. He nods once and lets you aboard. The boat glides silently. You pass souls waiting for judgment. Faces blurred by time. Some whisper, some cry. One seems to recognize you and tries to reach out, but the boat slides away before you can speak. Finally, the far shore. And there he is. Cerberus. 3 heads each larger than a man's chest. Eyes like coal lit from within. His fur is matted with ash. His tail, some kind of serpent, writhes and hisses behind him. He doesn't bark. Just watches you, all 6 eyes glowing in the dark. You don't draw your club? That won't work here. Instead, you bow. Then Hades arrives, tall, pale, wearing robes that look like they were spun from shadow. He doesn't greet you, just studies you like a particularly rude tax problem. You want him? He asks, gesturing toward Cerberus. You nod. Alive. Only if you can subdue him without weapons, Hades says. and if you return him. So that's the deal. You walk toward the beast. Each step feels like a gamble. His central head growls low. The left bares its teeth. The right tilts, slightly curious. You speak softly. You tell him about the lions, the birds, the apples. You tell him you're tired, that you just need him to come with you just for a little while. He watches. He sniffs. Then you move. You leap forward, wrap your arms around his neck, hold fast as the heads thrash. Teeth snap inches from your face. The serpent tail lashes your back, but you hang on, not with rage, with patience. Eventually the growls turn to pants. His shoulders relax, and you whisper, "Let's go." You walk out of the underworld side by side. People scream when they see you coming, rightfully so. But Cerberus doesn't attack. He walks calmly beside you, like a terrifying mythological puppy who's just happy to be outside. Eurystheus, upon seeing you, shrieks loud enough to startle birds in other countries. He dives so deep into his jar, someone has to dig him out with a pole. He counts the labor complete. You return Cerberus yourself, all three heads resting against you in something close to affection. Hades nods, says nothing. But there's the slightest flicker of approval in his shadowed eyes. Quirky note. Some vase paintings show Cerberus not as monstrous, but almost adorable, like a big confused dog with too many faces and no idea how to sit properly. It's nice to imagine him that way just for a moment. That night back in the world of the living, you lie beneath the stars. You've gone to hell and come back, and for once your sleep is dreamless. 12 labors down. You'd think there'd be a parade, a feast, maybe even a commemorative amphora. But no, there's just silence. The kind that settles after a storm when everyone's too stunned to celebrate and too nervous to ask what happens next. You return to Tyrans expecting closure. Instead, you get awkward stares and whispers that flutter like moths. Eurystheus avoids your gaze more than usual. His guards look at you, the way children look at lightning, fascinated, but hoping it doesn't come any closer. There's no official scroll this time, just word from the court. You may rest now, but what does that even mean? You've done everything they asked, wrestled lions, cleaned filth with rivers, outsmarted titans, and faced death without flinching. Yet you don't feel fixed. There's no divine chime that says soul redeemed, just your same old heartbeat ticking away in the same old chest. You walk the streets of Tyrans. People bow. Some cheer, but their eyes linger too long on your scars, your posture, your silence. You're not just Hercules. Now you're the man who survived the labors. A story they can't decide whether to admire or fear. You catch your reflection in a polished bronze shield. You don't recognize it. You're larger now, leaner. The lion skin across your back seems too small. Your eyes are darker, like they've seen too many ends and too few beginnings. And then there's the nightmares. They start quietly, at first just flickers of memory. The eyes of the Hydra still blinking after its 9th head fell. The heat of Gerion's breath warm and sour on your face. Hippolyta reaching for you, her fingers curling in confusion, not rage. Then louder dreams. Screams you didn't know you remembered. Friends you didn't know you lost. Historians still argue whether Hercules truly redeemed himself through the labors, or simply became something the gods could no longer ignore. His myth, after all, doesn't end with 12. The story goes on. But for a brief moment, there's this pause, this strange interlude between monstrous tasks and tragic immortality. That's where you are now. You leave the palace one morning without telling anyone. Just walk. Past groves, past rivers you've bathed in, past hills you once tumbled down with your children back when laughter came easily. You pass a fig tree you once slept under. The trunk has grown twisted. Familiar. You sit. You wonder if Hera is watching. If Zeus cares. if any of the gods remember the promises they make or the damage they leave in their wake. Quirky footnote. There's a minor myth almost never told about how after the labors, Hercules would sometimes wander villages at night, not as a hero but in disguise. He'd help rebuild walls, carry water patch roofs. People would wake to find the work done and never know who did it. You like that one? It's quiet, useful. You lie back in the grass, the lion skin tucked under your head. The sun filters through leaves above you, dappling your face in gold. For a few minutes, you let yourself pretend the world doesn't need you anymore. You close your eyes and breathe. Days pass, maybe weeks. You stop keeping track. There's a strange freedom in not counting time. No monsters to slay, no scrolls to open, no waiting for the next ridiculous demand. You fish from shallow streams. You mend a broken fence for an old farmer who doesn't recognize you. You help lift a wagon wheel out of a ditch without being asked. No one says Hercules. They just nod, grateful. You almost feel human again. Almost, but it lingers the weight. Not the sky that was Atlas's problem, but something heavier, more personal. You've completed the labors. You've followed orders, bent your back, risked your life again and again. And yet the guilt of your family's death still hums in your blood like a low, never-ending chord. There are whispers. Of course there are. The bards start singing songs, 12 verses long, each one glorifying your strength, skipping over the darker parts. The madness, the silence afterward, the way you collapsed sobbing in the temple, not because of pain, but because you still remembered their faces. Eurystheus sends word again through a sheepish messenger. He wants to parade you through the city. Gold laurels, speeches, statues. You send back 2 words, I'm done, because you are. Historians still argue whether Hercules was ever truly free after the labors, or whether the myth simply shifts direction. Some say he was cursed with more trials. Others say he ascended a hero among gods. But here, in this quiet pause, you feel neither. Not a god, not a monster, just tired. You begin walking again, not to Tiryns, not to Thebes, just away. The roads are quieter now. Travelers recognize you, but say nothing. A child offers you a fig and asks if you're the apple thief from the song. You smile and lie. No, just a traveler. One night, while camped near a grove, an old man approaches. Doesn't give a name, just sits beside your fire and listens. You talk, not about monsters or labors. About what you remember your children's laughter. The feel of Megara's hand in yours before Hera twisted your mind. You cry. Not loudly. Just enough. He doesn't speak. Just stays until dawn. Then walks away, leaving behind a carved wooden charm in the shape of a lion's paw. You wear it. Quirky detail. In some obscure versions of the myth, Hercules created small tokens after his labors. Simple wooden carvings left behind in villages as a reminder that something once painful had passed through. Archaeologists haven't found them, but some say they still turn up in dreams. You spend a few weeks in a village that needs repairs. Storm damage, cracked foundations. You don't tell them your name. You just work. Quietly. One day you lift a fallen tree off a collapsed home. The family inside doesn't thank you. They weep. You weep too. The strength that once broke necks and split monsters now holds broken beams and rescues goats from ditches. It feels better, and it feels right. But something in your bones whispers, it won't last. You look at the stars one night and ask them softly if peace is ever permanent for someone like you. The wind rustles the trees but says nothing. The labors are over, but the story isn't. You feel it moving again, like the ground before an earthquake, like the breath before a scream. You don't know what comes next, but you know it's coming. Still, for now, you lie on the earth with your lion skin pulled tight around your shoulders, a wooden charm resting on your chest, and the scent of fig trees in the air. You close your eyes, and you rest. The end begins with a fire, not one you light, one you step into. You know it's coming. The gods have been quiet too long. You've helped the people lay down your weapons, lived simply. But you are still Hercules. And stories like yours don't fade quietly, they end with smoke and legend. It starts with a betrayal. You marry again. Her name is Deianira. She's kind, strong in a way that doesn't need swords. You love her. Or at least the idea that something in your life could be normal again. Peaceful, maybe even gentle. But then Nessus comes, a centaur. He offers to carry Deianira across a river while you wait ahead. Halfway across, he tries to steal her violently foolishly. You shoot him with an arrow poisoned by the Hydra's blood. He dies. But with his last breath, he tells Deianira a lie that his blood is a love charm, a way to keep your heart faithful. She believes him. Later, fearing your love might drift, she smears a robe with the blood and sends it to you. You put it on. And it burns. Not with flame, but with a poison so fierce it melts, skin fuses, muscle boils thought. You scream not from fear, but from betrayal. From the cruel echo of yet another mistake born of trust. You tear at the robe, but it clings. Your body is stronger than any man's, but not stronger than divine venom. Your legs buckle. You fall. Some say you wandered into the hill's body, failing vision blurring. Others say you were carried supported by the same villagers you once helped. However it happened, you know what must come. You build your own funeral pyre. Wood stacked high beneath a lonely tree on Mount Oeda. The wind stills. Birds fall silent. You lie down upon the log's lion skin, folded beneath your head. You wait. No one dares light the fire except one man. Philoctetes. Young, brave, maybe a little foolish. You ask him with a nod, and he steps forward. His hands shake, but he strikes the spark. The flame catches. It climbs. It swallows you, but there is no scream. Just the sound of wind shifting trees bowing slightly as if in mourning. You feel no more pain. Just release. And then ascension. Zeus himself intervenes. The gods who once toyed with your fate now pull you from the flames. Your body turns to stars. Your suffering dissolves into myth. You become divine. On Olympus they greet you not with fanfare, but with quiet. Hera the tormentor finally sees you not as a rival, but as a son. A god reborn through fire and labor blood in silence. You sit among them now. But your eyes still carry memory of the wife you lost, the labors you bore, the children who once laughed in your arms. You are immortal, yes, but you are never the same. And yet, high above the mortal world, you rest. Now the fires are long extinguished, the stars overhead glitter faintly, and your story, loud, bloody, chaotic, softens into something else. Just shapes in the sky. The lion, the bow, the club. You've seen them before, twinkling above the roofs of sleeping cities, over fields where no monsters tread anymore. No scrolls, no labors, no poison robes. Only silence. You can breathe now. Slowly, the way the sea breathes against the sand. You can lie down without armor, without worry. Let the earth hold your weight for a while. Let the wind run its fingers through your hair like a lullaby whispered by old friends. The labors are done. The night is long, and nothing chases you anymore. So let your thoughts soften. Let the monsters retreat into memory. Let the gods quiet down for once. You are safe here beneath the quiet stars, and you can sleep.